Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to American Defender. I gotta get down here on the other step before we were sitting out here on the stoop. Here we are. So today we're going to talk about e-bikes, and I'm going to run you through the process of diagnosing an e-bike. I've recently got into e-bikes again here. Well, I've never really been into them. I've been into golf carts and RC cars and all that kind of stuff. It's all the same. All right, the principles are all the same. And I'm gonna display that in this video. So let's go ahead and flip the camera around here, and I'll show you what to look for. I've got a Worksman lightning trike here that I bought, I believe it was yesterday, for 170 bucks. It's got a Bafang system on it from the factory. It's a 2021. When the bike sold brand new back in 2021, they were almost $3,000. All right, so they weren't cheap. If you know anything about Worksman trikes, just the trikes themselves aren't cheap normally, because they're the best built, most heavy dutyest built tricycle there is, for adults available. They're known as an industrial trike. Okay, so I have this, and I have some Jetsons and a Magnum Summit, and then another trike up there. So let's flip this around, and I'll run you through real quick what to look for, kind of how to do it. All right, I'm not going to demonstrate it, but I'm going to talk about it, because if you know how to use a voltmeter and check for continuity and voltage, you got this licked. Okay, you've got what you need. So let's flip it around, and I'll run you through everything. Hang tight here. Let's flip this around. Okay, so we got the camera turned around now. Just saw a scorpion crawl down on my wall over there. It's the first time I've ever seen one at my house that I didn't bring home as a pet. But either way, kind of watching for him. The last thing I need is a bark scorpion to sting me. So let me pop back up here real quick, and we're going to run through what to look for on these e-bikes. Okay, first thing we're going to want to do is check out our battery. Now, my battery's not there, it's in the house because I don't want tweakers stealing it, but there we go. And you gotta have a can of polar ice water down there. Any which way. First things you do. Okay, so like I said, all of your electric vehicles have these same components. They're just at different sizes and stuff. So you'll have a battery holder, wiring, speed controller, black box. Okay, more wiring going up, and it'll all go to an LCD display. All right, this just happens to be the APT850C, also known as the Bafang 850C. And then off of there, there'll be some little offshoots, like for brakes and headlights and things like that. All right. So when you are presented with like what this bike had, it wouldn't turn on. All right, just flat out wouldn't turn on. The first thing you want to check in that is the battery voltage. Now, this is a 48-volt system. So a 48-volt system, fully charged, should be about 53, 54 volts. Somewhere in there. Okay. And fully discharged should be around 42, 41. I mean, that is really discharged. Okay. You really don't want it to drop below 48, 47. But you want the voltage in that range, anywhere between 41 and 54 volts. Okay. That's for a 48-volt system. For a 36-volt system, it's about 34 to 43 volts. Okay. So you want to check your battery, and you do that with your multimeter. You put it on DC voltage. My voltage meter goes off of sixths. So it goes 60, 600, 6,000, whatever. So you would set it to 60. You want the meter set at a higher voltage than, or be able to read a higher voltage than what you got. So set it at 60. If you have one of the ones that goes in twos, 220, 200, 2000. You're going to set yours at 200. Okay. And then we just check our outputs on the battery. All right. You'll find a positive, you'll find a negative on there, and you check your outputs. It's simple enough. Beware on these batteries, a lot of them have a on and off switch on them. So find that switch. They also have a fuse in them. Check that fuse. Okay. Typically, not all of them have that, but typically they have that. So check that. And, you know, if the switch is off, it will read a lower voltage or no voltage. Or if the fuse is bad, it'll read a lower voltage or no voltage. So check those things, okay? If the switch is off, turn it on, check it again. And if the voltage goes up, which it will, and it's within range, you're good. If it's not within range, it's bad, all right? And you can stop right there. The battery's your issue. They say these batteries are usually good for about 5 years or 1,000 cycles. They're actually good for a lot longer than that if you take care of them correctly and don't let the battery go below 20%. Okay, if you charge the battery more often, again, that doesn't mean leave it on the charger every time you're done riding it either, because that'll weaken a battery too. But you know, let it come down 20%. Let it get down to 15%. No lower than that, and then charge it all the way up overnight. Okay. Also, I suggest when you're charging your battery, if you can do it, don't do it on the bicycle. Take the battery off the bike and charge it off the bike. It's safer, and it's a better charge because you're going directly to the battery, and you don't have any parasitic loss from your wiring. All right. So, or any kind of onboard systems. So we start here. All right. If this is good, the battery's good, you're going to check the battery connections in here. Like there's a brand of e-bike called a electric. They have a huge problem with the battery connector. It's got 4 screws. It's a plastic connector, bolts to the frame. Huge problem with those losing connection, because the wires will break on the back because they stuff everything into the frame of the bike. And this is usually, you know, folding bicycles, kind of like those two over there, like that Jetson Hayes right there is kind of a good example of one that has a battery up in the frame. Those there's a flat connector that bolts to the frame. The wiring on the back of it sometimes will break. All right, so check that too. If all of that's checking out, like in this particular case, this has wire coming up and it has an XT90 right here. Okay, so we'll check all this wiring. We'll make sure voltage is coming through here. We'll check the battery. If the battery's got voltage at the battery, you slide it in here, lock it in, and then yeah, you can see someone dug my lock out. Damn tweakers. Any which way, I don't know that that's what happened. I think it was the people I bought it from in Scottsdale. Any which way, you can check the voltage here at your XT60 on the battery side of it. If you have voltage here, then you know all this wiring is good, and that whole system is out of the picture now. All right, if you have good voltage there. So we've checked the battery to make sure that the battery itself has the proper amount of voltage. Then we've put the battery back in here to make sure voltage, any kind of voltage, was getting up to the plug end here. So now that we know voltage was getting here, let's give you guys some light. All right, so we know voltage was getting here. Well, then this whole thing gets canceled out. We know that's fine. So it's forward of the battery. The next thing we check, we come to is some kind of box, which will be known as a speed controller. All right, or in the e-bike world, it's just a controller. Don't get that confused with a display. All right, some people call those controllers as well. That's incorrect. They're a display or a bike computer. Okay. This little guy right here very rarely ever goes out, but they do go out. All right, so you check this guy out. The easiest way to check one of these out, this is going to sound ridiculous. If you can get it off the bike and you can get it opened, smell it. Okay, give it the sniff test. If it smells burnt, it's bad. All right. If you open it up and you look in there and there's charged stuff, of course, it's bad. Check your caps visually. Make sure the tops aren't popped, because when a capacitor pops, the top of it will bulge out. That's why they have that little cross in the top. They're made to bulge up or blow out the top right there. All right. You also have MOSFET chips running down one side on a heatsink on these controllers. You can get on YouTube and go through the process of checking for those MOSFETs. Okay, but if it doesn't smell burnt or anything looks burnt inside of it, it's probably okay. All right, 99% of the time it's okay. All right, so that's where we would go next is the controller. Between the controller and so we've checked the battery, the wiring in between the controller and the battery. Okay, that would be this guy. That would be the feed. Now we need to check the wiring in between up here at the handlebars and the controller. And you have two sides. You have controller side, which we'll check later. All right. The way we do that is we find out our positives and negatives and everything inside of here. We can use needles. We can use, breadboard wire. There's a lot of different ways. I've even seen people in these Juliet connectors. If you don't know what a Juliet connector is, these are Juliet connectors. Okay. I've even seen people use paper clips, even though paper clips not really a good idea. Some paper clips are just too big, and they force them in there, and then it breaks the pins and the ports, and it's just, if it don't fit, don't force it. Okay. Needles work really good. You can make your own breadboard wire basically by taking some very thin, which I might have some here. Oh, that was my finger. Taking some very thin wire, and here we go. I think is that one of my wires down there? Yeah, so some really thin wire like this, stripping the end of it and just soldering the end. That's what a breadboard wire really all it is. And then you can take this in the little ports in there and stick it down in the little hole, and it'll make connection, and just bounce it around. You get two of them, bounce them around in there, and use your meter on a continuity test and see if you have a break in the wire. Because really that's all that happens here, is you'll have a break in a wire or a break in connection. All right, if it burns, trust me, you'll know it. You'll have a singe spot in the wire. All right, or it'll be distorted or something. So do your continuity test, check. You can check this end to the end up here and all these different ends, and if you don't find any breaks, guess what? On your meter, your wiring loom, your wiring harness is fine. All right, so you can take it out of the equation. All right, so we've checked our battery is good. We've checked our wiring is good. We've given a sniff test to our controller. It doesn't smell burnt, but we haven't quite checked out to make sure for a fact that it works. I've got a real simple test for that to tell if it works. So we're going to assume this is working at this point in time because it doesn't smell burnt. We're going to come up here to the display. All right, so like this bike, when you would hit the button, it wouldn't turn on at the display. So this tells you it's either the controller or the display. And now we can test both of those, again, with that breadboard wire that we made. By coming up, see if I can get this apart. Let me lay it down real quick. You can take a look at have a close-up of a sled. Let me pop that apart. Okay. So here's what a Juliet connector looks like. There's the female side. Right there, it's a 5-pin. Okay. And I'm sure y'all have seen these, and that's what the male side looks like. Okay. We want the female side because we're going to bypass this thing. All right. So what we do is the notch is always our indication point on here. See the notch at the top? The red and blue wire in here, which on this is pin number 1, which is the top pin on the right, and pin number 2, which is the top pin on the left. We're going to jump those two together. All right. If you jump those two together, you should be able to hit that throttle up there, and this bike lunge forward. If that happens, and it lunges forward, that's your culprit. This little display is your culprit. I'll tell you how to fix it here in a second. All right, because that's what happened here. I used this exact methodology on here, and that's how I determined that this was the culprit. And then I fixed this, and no money out of my pocket. It works great now. All right, other than it being ridiculously slow. It only does 6 miles an hour. But either way, I think that's got something to do with this proprietary controller. So that's what you do there, okay? If you put those wires in there and jump them, the red and the blue, remember Republican and Democrat, if you put those wires in there, you hit it up there, battery's hooked up and everything, by the way, and it doesn't move, that's your problem. It's your controller. It's not your display. That's how you can determine. Real easy. Is it my controller or is it my display? Because what you're doing here is you're sending the power. Both of those are power wires, okay? There's a ground in here too. It's pin number 3. Don't touch that. The black wire, never, no. It's always red to blue, all right? It is your power feed to your controller and then your power feed back to, or the power feed from the controller to the display and then display power back to here, all right? So it's from here to there and then there back to here. This is basically a switch, if you look at it like that, like a gate. And you're taking that out, and that piece of wire you're putting in here is now that gate, all right? So by shorting that directly, people call it shorting. It's actually jumping, okay? You're diagnosing either one of these, okay? Again, if it lurches forward after you do that, your controller is fine. Your display is what's bad. If it doesn't lurch forward, your controller is bad, your display is fine. Okay, so that's a really simple test, okay? And that's every e-bike. Every single one of them. If they have a display, every single one of them. Even if it's like these Jetsons on the handlebars there, they've got just 4 little light display, same kind of process, all right? It's the same thing, red to blue. Put them together, and if it goes, you're good. All right, there's guys out there that will even go buy a male 5-pin Juliet connector, solder those 2 wires together, and carry it in their bag, and then just shove it up in here in case something was to happen while they're out so they can get home. All right, which ain't a bad idea. Which I have to give a big shout out to Inglewood Batman, because that's where I learned that from. All right. I knew there had to be a bypass for this, and he's the one that I ran across that said that. So there you go. That's how you do that. Okay. So I'm gonna have to set you down again. Let you take a look at my rose bush. Phone's probably gonna flop. I'll try to make it so it doesn't. There we go. I gotta plug this back in, or I'll come out here and forget it. All right. So in my case, like I said, I found out that I needed a new display. The display was the issue. Most people are going to rush out and just try to go buy another display. We're going to get into some more advanced stuff right now. Your display's probably, unless it got wet, is probably not bad. All right, so what I have here, if you look underneath it here, it says APT 850C. Okay, there's all your information on them. That's the same thing as a Bafang 850C. It's the exact same thing, it's just rebranded. Okay, let me turn that light off. So this happens on a lot of controllers, but especially Bafangs, all right? You'll get this issue where this won't turn on. And if this doesn't turn on, it doesn't activate your speed controller and the bike won't go anywhere. All right? Well, how do you fix this? Other than going and buying another controller. All right. Well, if you were, or excuse me, another display. Well, you can do a continuity check on your buttons here, which I would suggest doing. And you have to open up the buttons and all of that to do it, and it's kind of a hard process. But chances are it's not the buttons. It's not these guys. All right. It's inside here, because inside these Bafang 850C controllers, there's a little watch battery on the board. And I remembered from back in my old days hacking computers, computers on their motherboards for the BIOS, they have that watch battery in there. And like if I would go buy old used computers, and they would have a password on them, and the way I would reset the motherboard or at least the BIOS on the motherboard and get rid of the password is you get in there and you pull that little button cell out, you hold it out for 10 seconds, push the battery back in, and password was gone. Kind of the same things going on here. The little button cell in there is anywhere between 1.5 to 3 volts. This one was sitting at 1.45. Okay, they can go as low as 1. It's a rechargeable cell. So if you don't ride the bike very often, like this one wasn't ridden very often, that battery will deplete. And if it depletes down below a certain voltage, it won't turn back on. So how in the world do we get this working? Do we replace the battery? No, we don't, because it's soldered in. We don't want to screw with it. What we do is we go, and you'll look on the board, and you'll see 2 little stripes of solder sitting next to it. Okay, you just take a feeler gauge or a steel, like a tip of a screwdriver or anything, and you jump the positive and the negative port on to that battery for about 10 seconds. It I'll use the word shorts it out, okay, for a split second, and it resets the motherboard on the display. And then when you reinstall everything, again, to take this apart, you're going to have to take this bezel off here. There's 2 screws, and in the bottom of it, tiny little screws. You're going to take those 2 screws out. I used a 10 thousandths feeler gauge to get this apart. Okay, you can also use a guitar pick. You're going to kind of just gently pop this off. This just snaps off, and then run that 10 thousandths feeler gauge all the way around the edges. There's like a glue in there holding it down. You're going to just kind of gently push through the glue, pull the glass off the top. The display is actually underneath this glass right here. And then you're just going to take those screws out and then tilt it forward from the top. Okay, tilt it forward, and you'll see that little battery in there. Just short it out for 10 seconds, put it all back together, and put it back on here. It's going to turn on. There you go. You're welcome. Okay. If it doesn't work, then that probably is toasted. But again, just like the controller, if something fried inside of this guy, you're going to smell it. You're going to see it. You're going to see burn marks. It's going to smell bad. It's going to smell burnt. Okay. So it'll be an instant. The second you open, you won't even have to open it. Just smell it. And if it smells burnt, then you know something's going on in there. All right. But open it up anyway. And, you know, try that out, because it might not be burnt. All right. Maybe it was sitting next to a campfire. I don't know. Maybe it tried to become a campfire. E-bikes are kind of known for that. Either way. So that's from the front to the back. Now, another little thing to note. Let me get this out of the way here. Let's go walk over here to the Jetson. Let me stand up real quick here. I'm going to pause this video. Okay. Let's get over to the Jetson here. Alright, I'm working my way over here. Alright, so the Jetson here, like I said, had broken wires. Turn some light on. Sorry about the haze. My phone's in its holder, and it's got a little piece of leather that hangs out and reflects light, so we'll just take it out of the case here. There we are. So you can see right here, it had a couple wires that broke here. They went to this brake. Where is it? This one right here. All right. Right there. And they were mashed up against the handlebars, and this thing wouldn't go anywhere. Well, now, if I turn it on, I got the key off. It's over here. Hold on. Now you can see it lights up. Okay, and if I try to give it a little gas, all right, runs just fine. I paid $20 for this bicycle. Okay, so that's another thing that can happen. That's why you want to do the continuity check on your harness. Okay, is you're looking for that kind of stuff. On this one, I could literally see it. I got down and you see how tight all that is. Just kind of lifted up on it, and I found it. All right, just same thing on my wife's bike here. Forgive the mud; she's having some fun with it. Same thing. You know, anywhere wires are bent really sharp and hard, that's usually where you're going to find a break. All right, so there's the front of the Workman. All right, and there's the Jetson. All right, so this is my Jetson Hayes 48 volt 16-inch tired or 16-inch wheeled e-bike, and my wife's Bolt Pro, and then my Magnum Summit. We're in the middle of cleaning this room out, so forgive me of the mess, but here's the Magnum Summit, 27.5-inch 500 watt hub motor in the back, 48 volt, and there's the Terror itself. Okay, that is the scariest motorized bicycle I have ever ridden on in my entire life. And there's the power plant, the heart that makes it live, a high compression 88cc Terror that originally was on that frame. And if you notice how it tacoed, see that in the back right there? Big old whoop right there. The whole frame is like that. The whole frame is kicked off in the front forks, so you could kind of, maybe you can kind of see how it popped out of the Springer front end and everything. So that's the bike I got hit on right there. All right, and as you can see how it moved the seat post out of the way, pushed me over, knocked me off the bike and everything. Anyway, all this stuff, that gas tank, that engine, that exhaust right there was half of the handlebars that were originally on here. I took all the stuff off of there, put it on here, had to machine a bunch of stuff down in here, so like that hub adapter for the motor, and I did some welding here, as you can see, with my flux core welder. Wish I had a TIG, but I don't. So made my own chain tensioner, and yeah, this little booger right here is scary. Okay, at about 21 miles an hour, it gets really sketch really quick, and you're only about quarter throttle. Okay, so when all of this stuff was on this frame, it would do 55 miles an hour. Now it's on a lighter, this trike was lighter than that complete bicycle was, by about 35-40 pounds. Okay, so this thing's definitely lighter, and yeah, it moves. All right, it's the fastest bike in this room. All right, the next fastest would be this guy right here. With pedaling, it does about 25. Both of those do about 15, and the old trike back there's right now for some reason only does 7. All right, so something that they did with the programming to make it go super slow, I'm going to defeat it. I want it to do at least 15, 20. And the only reason this one is so sketchy is because of how low to the ground it is, and you know, like the types of handlebars. This was a folding trike as well, so it gets real sketchy really quick. If you want a thrill, this is the one that'll give it to you. You know, so either which way, e-bikes, guys, they're fun, and that's how you would go about diagnosing something like that guy right there, right? Or this one right here with this Jetson Hayes. That's how you go about doing it. It's a simple process of elimination. You need a voltmeter, maybe some, you know, breadboard pins or some needles to stick into some areas so you can use them to put your meter on, so you can read voltages and read, you know, for continuity and resistance, and that's it. Of course, you need wrenches and stuff like that too. But to do the basics and figure out if it's going to run or not and what's wrong with it. That's all you need. You don't need an oscilloscope and all that crap. And the e-bike diagnostic tool, you don't need all that. You got a voltmeter, you have an e-bike diagnostic tool, and I just gave you the information to empower you so that you can do this. And I didn't even charge you anything for that. How about that? So, any which way, there you go. E-bikes 101. Get out there and get you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. I got another one coming. I got a Suron getting ready to show up on my doorstep tomorrow that a kid thinks he smoked the controller on. I really doubt that he did, but even if he did, I have a soldering iron. I know how to solder. So, with that, I'm out. God bless you. See you on the flip. Ride safely. Bye now.